From 190 million in 200 AD, the world's population grew at a very low rate over the centuries. For example, 1,200 years later, in 1400, the world population had risen to only 350 million. It was the Industrial Revolution that exploded the rate of population growth. Because the Industrial Revolution increased production like never before. Accordingly, the population increased. In 1760, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, there were 770 million people in the world. Despite two of the bloodiest wars in history in the first half of the 1900s, the world population exceeded 2.5 billion in 1951. 70 years later, it passed 8 billion in 2023. But now we have come to the end of this dizzying rise. Experts predict that the long-term and steady upward trend in the population of countries, and therefore the world, is coming to an end. In some countries, it has already come to an end. Because while the population has multiplied billion by billion over the last 50 years, at the same time the rate of increase has been declining. The United Nations predicts that this decline will continue in the coming years. At the same time as the rate of increase is declining, the world population is also aging. For example, in 1970, the average age of all people living in the world was 20.3 years. Today, the average age of people living in the world is 30.5. In 1965, there was an average of 5.1 births per woman worldwide. In other words, every woman living in the world was having more than 5 children on average. Today, the birth rate per woman is 2.3. This rate is also falling sharply. With an aging population, falling birth rates, and even falling marriage rates and rising divorce rates, the alarm bells are already ringing for some nations. In a very short time, some nations are expected to be wiped off the face of the earth. For example, there are countries that are nation-states today, but will soon lose the nation on which they base their legitimacy. In this video from the Knowledge Vault, we take a closer look at the countries with the fastest population decline. Japan's population reached an all-time high of over 128 million in 2009. But since then, it has started to decline. They experienced a decline of about 6 million, and today they have a population of 122,700,000. Every year, 4 out of 1,000 Japanese are lost, and the rate is getting higher and higher. Worse than that, about a third of the country's population is over the age of 65. This makes them the oldest nation in the world. The birth rate per woman is as low as 1.3. And for every child born, life expectancy is 82 years on average. All these factors contribute to the country's declining reproductive rates. People are also discouraged from marrying and having children in order to economically maintain a certain level of lifestyle. As an island nation, Japan is an expensive country. They also have geographically limited residential areas. Therefore, real estate prices are high. All these factors lead Japanese people to marry less, have fewer children, and their population is shrinking. One of the interesting details leading to the population decline in Japan is the spread of the trend called ohitori-sama in their language, which means the art of living alone. This trend, which has been rising for the last 10 years, has become more widespread after the pandemic. The main reason why people who choose to live alone do so is not because they cannot find friends or enter a social circle. On the contrary, it is because they feel under constant pressure in their work and friendship circles. Japanese people who want to escape what is constantly demanded of them, to get rid of the pressure of expectations, do not want to deal with anyone in their free time. And this is spreading not only among adults, but also among school and university-age children. In recent years, the art of living alone, ohitori-sama, has become accepted throughout society. The food and entertainment industry has followed suit. For example, karaoke is one of Japan's favorite entertainment activities, and it is best enjoyed in a group. But today, there are places where people go alone and sing karaoke. As the solitary lifestyle spreads, people are also minimizing their contact with the opposite sex. This is one of the obstacles to marriage or children. As a result, ohitori-sama is also cited as one of the reasons for the decline of the Japanese population. Romania, with a population of 19,600,000, is already an unpopulous country. two political turning points in recent history have led to an alarming decline in their population. The first of these turning points was 1989, when Ceausescu was overthrown and the communist system came to an end. After the fall of communism, 1 in 4 of Romania's population emigrated to another country. Another important milestone after the fall of communism was Romania's admission to the European Union in 2007. As Romanian citizens gained the right to freely move, settle, and work in European countries, emigration abroad became widespread. In fact, one of the first goals of young Romanians today is to emigrate to one of the developed countries. More than 1 million Romanians live in Italy and Spain, about 900,000 in Germany, 540,000 in the UK, and 450,000 in the USA. In fact, according to Eurostat, the official statistics provider of the European Union, Romanians have children at the youngest age on average in Europe. But the fertility rate is around 1.6 children per woman. This is an additional factor in the inability to compensate for the loss of population through emigration. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine, many Western companies shifted their production and operation centers from Eastern Europe to Romania. But they are struggling to find labor because of the insufficient and shrinking population. There is also a recent historical trauma behind Romania's women's growing aversion to the idea of childbearing. In general, dictators want women to have as many children as possible. Ceausescu passed a law in 1966 to encourage women to have more children and increase the population. This law restricted contraception. Ceausescu argued that the purpose of the law was to fight against Western imperialism and therefore to increase the labor force. According to the law, women could only have abortions for certain reasons. One of these was that the woman seeking an abortion had to have at least 5 children. Another was that the pregnancy had to be medically terminated. If a woman secretly had an abortion and it was discovered, she could be imprisoned. In 1989, the year Ceausescu was overthrown, Romania's female mortality rate was the highest in Europe. In addition, many women who had to give birth to children against their will during the communist era abandoned them on the streets. Immediately after the dictator was overthrown, the law on abortion and birth control was changed. But for many years, the law and the tragedies associated with it traumatized the collective minds of the Romanian people. Bulgaria's population has shrunk from around 9 million in the early 1980s to around 6.5 million today. This is proportionally one of the largest population losses in modern times. If Bulgaria continues at this rate, in about 100 years there will be no one of Bulgarian descent left in the world. Bulgaria is the poorest country in the European Union. The #1 goal of every young person who graduates from university is to leave the country to start a new life and work in one of the developed countries. Since joining the European Union in 2007, around 1 million Bulgarians have emigrated to rich Western European countries such as Germany, the UK, and the Netherlands. This high level of emigration has led to a faster decline in the male population. In Bulgaria today, 52.1% of the population is made up of women, and 47.9% of the population is made up of men. And this imbalance is growing. Another consequence of emigration is an aging population. Today, approximately 1 in 4 Bulgarians is over 65 years old. Only about 1 in 10 Bulgarians are under the age of 17. Bulgaria's long communist system collapsed in 1990, and the country has since transitioned to democracy. Despite the transition to democracy in terms of the functioning of the state, the communist system remained institutionalized and embedded in the state. This led to a system in which corruption was rampant and decisions were made not for the country and its people, but for the interests of those who controlled the state apparatus. Bulgarians are also among the highest smokers and alcohol consumers in the world. Widespread harmful habits lead to public health problems and high mortality rates. According to recent studies, 53% of the population decline is due to births outnumbering deaths and 47% to emigration. We have come to the end of our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.